So I complained in my Spider-Man review that the MCU is bland and has mediocre camera work, and then they made Doctor Strange. I'm just saying, I complained and they fixed it. I'm not gonna take all the credit, but I do deserve most of it. But Doctor Strange is a step in the right direction. There's actually a proper color grade throughout it. There's contrast in the lighting. The camera actually moves in interesting ways, not just a slow generic pan that they always do. And in my Eternals review, I essentially said that the MCU isn't allowing its films to commit to a genre, and the films can't differentiate themselves from each other, and eventually people will just get bored of superhero films. Marvel's been dipping their feet into different genres. Like Ant-Man is supposed to be a heist movie, but it's not really a heist movie. But this one is actually a little different. It's almost sort of kind of horror. Like there's horror elements with its direction and pacing, but it's really just a couple of scenes. I don't completely consider it a horror because it does get very superhero-y. It does have like the generic Marvel plot, and a lot of people are considering it a horror because of the gore and the brutality. But by that logic, Spider-Man 2 is a horror film because of that one scene with the robot tentacles. I mean, then again, it did really scare me as a kid, so I don't know. And if it's just the gore, then is The Boys a horror show? But like, I'm saying all this just to say that these small changes, like these gothic aesthetics and unique atmosphere, made the film feel unique from other MCU films. I do think it's interesting to compare it to another quote-unquote horror show. Even though it made headlines for being a horror, Moon Knight is not a horror at all, like not even the slightest. It's a psychological thriller with a couple jump scares, and it's not brutal at all. I think it's mainly because Kevin Feige's essentially false advertising lately is like just throwing me off. I was kind of wrong in the Eternals review saying that Marvel needs to stick to a genre to make something unique, but this show proves me wrong. But it's nowhere near as brutal as Doctor Strange, and it doesn't even come close to Daredevil in terms of violence. I don't know, maybe I got confused or something. Here's my mini review of Moon Knight, because I feel like I shouldn't make a whole video on it, but my mini review of Moon Knight is more like midnight. I mean, it's not bad. The only good episode is the last one that actually had good action and creative writing choices. I think they spent too long on doing the origin story or whatever, but it really reminded me of Legion, essentially a forgotten Marvel show. Back when Disney didn't own Fox, they were both superhero shows with mentally ill main characters, but Legion is essentially like a mind-bending show where you don't know what's real or not, and this show kind of does that, but like it's very easy to follow. That one has like a whole unreliable narrator, and it's just much more interesting. It's way more surreal, and you genuinely just don't know what to believe in. But Moon Knight ends up having a somewhat generic plot, find the magical thing Marvel plot. But the whole reason I bring it up is even though it does feel different than MCU films and all the other stuff, I'm glad it tried, you know? A for effort. I just wish it was more bold in its presentation, and I wish the editing wasn't as sloppy as it is. But back to Doctor Strange. I do think the film shows a weakness of the MCU perfectly with just how little tension there is in the film. Just because going forward, we'll always think in the back of our mind, they can just get another Doctor Strange from a different universe. Like when someone dies, we can just call our new dimension hopping friend America Chavez to get another one that had a similar life in the multiverse. On a side note, isn't it crazy that Marvel's first Hispanic superhero has border hopping powers? That's got to be intentional. I'm not letting that slide. But anyways, the multiverse does create a lot of writing opportunities. Now there's essentially no limits, but it just feels like nothing matters anymore because the only risk is whether or not there will be some spin-off origin tale or a variant movie show or whatever. Like any character that gets killed off, all of the weight and impact is lost when you know there's infinite versions of them, and you know Marvel will pull from it and continue to milk it. I do think Marvel needs to stop with the world's going to end storylines because we know it's not going to happen, and they should instead have more personal stakes that I can actually believe in. Like the worst possible thing I could have done was to watch Everything Everywhere All at Once, because they both have like the multiverse concept. And the A24 film film focuses way more on family, and it just handles it in such a creative way. I just hate that these films lack consequences. Like, yes, Doctor Strange gets no bitches, but I just saw that in Spider-Man and in Spider-Man. It's kind of repetitive. Also, I know that he uses the forbidden spell and gets another eye, but I want to see the consequences now. I'm tired of all these teases for other movies that are just teases for other movies. It feels like it never ends. That never gives us the proper payoff. But my overall opinion on the movie is that it's good, and if we only looked at the direction and camera work, it might be the best in the MCU. But we do have to look at all of it, and its writing is just too generic, and its dialogue is pretty horrible, which ends up making it an average MCU film. Also, I do love that the MCU has a good villain every like 5 movies, and this time you gotta watch a whole show to like understand the villain. Like, even though it has a good villain, you kind of need to watch WandaVision to really get it. But like for Moon Knight, the villain just isn't good. I don't know. Comment down below what you think of Doctor Strange. Do you guys think Marvel needs to be more bold, or is it just fine what they're doing? And I know there's some people that didn't like Doctor Strange. I wonder why. Leave your thoughts below. But thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, leave a like, all that good stuff. Bye.